This is in the Gulf of Mexico, out of Tampa, Florida. And you can see this orb coming up out of the water. Yeah, that's the sea. And you'll see it starting to fade, but look behind it. You'll see another one coming up from behind it. And it gets brighter and brighter, and they come up out of the water. Back in April, just after Easter, I was asked, I was doing a festival in Wilmington, North Carolina, and my son organized a sky watch on Sunday night. So there were 75 people that showed up. And I told the whole group that at 8:30 it would start. And I suspected we'd see them come up out of the ocean, because I've been able to film them coming out of the water quite regularly. I've done it in Florida, and if you look, when that camera moved up, there was one up above. So needless to say, the whole group went crazy there. Basically, I told the group 8:30 they would appear, and I've been pretty fortunate in being able to predict the time within a minute or two on a pretty regular basis.
Get ready to meet a Special Forces Army intelligence veteran who will talk about the incredible case of Chris Bledsoe. United States Army Colonel John B. Alexander always had a special interest in the paranormal. During his long military career, he was part of Army intelligence and researched many unsolved mysteries. He investigated from near-death experiences and psychokinesis to remote viewing on the existence of UFOs. Now that he's retired, let's see the incredible case of Chris Bledsoe.
I have been interested in phenomena throughout my life and I can't explain it. In my more recent book, Reality Denied, it's the first chapter is Skinwalker Ranch. The second one is the Chris Bledsoe story. And that's the one, I had one minor sighting a number of years ago. That's when I was with NIDS, though I was up in Washington. But that was not a major thing. What happened with Chris, and I should say these continue. I mean, I'm still talking to him. I got new videos this week, so it's going. But his case, by the way, if anybody interested, he wrote UFO of God. And that's the one like mine. And I wrote the at one of the two forwards for that book. But what happened was I had met Chris, had interviewed him, and the story is long and convoluted and all of that. We went out to visit him. He lived in near Hope Mills, North Carolina. So we went back to where the original incident had happened. And so it was getting late in the afternoon. My wife and I and his daughter all went down the river, and he showed me. So we came back up, and it's just getting dark. Victoria and Emily get in the car, and Chris and I are leaning against the left front fender, and he's going, well, here's where this happened, here's where that happened. And all of a sudden he goes, oh, I think they're here. And with that, the thing pops into view and goes zipping off. And I saw that. But it was the temporal relationship between him saying, I think they're here, and disappearing. It was a few seconds.
The book is the best source to get an understanding of 18 years of interaction and how John and I have become very close friends with our families. And it's just been a long time we've been working on this. But in 2001, when the financial crisis, because of the World Trade Center disaster, right? I was a builder building 100 homes a year or more in our town of Fayetteville, which is the home of Fort Bragg, now Fort Liberty. And I got caught with my pants down, basically. I had too many houses for sale. We had this abrupt stop in the home building market. They were telling the soldiers, I wouldn't buy nothing now because, we don't know where we'll be. And they eventually ended up in Iraq. But what happened is I lost everything. And I were dealing with Crohn's disease growing up from a young person in my 20s, married. In fact, I'll be married tomorrow, 41 years, to the same beautiful lady. But I suffered with Crohn's disease, and it got worse and worse by the time 2007 rolls around, January of 2007. I had just come through a near-death experience the year before and was trying to recover, and the details about it's in the book. Long story short, I'm contemplating life, crying out to whoever's out there, help me. I'm now gone from $1 million home on a golf course for 20 years to a mobile home with no kitchen cabinets and asking for free lunches for school for my kids. That's how bad it got. And so here I am at the end of my rope crying out and out. I walk away from, I was fishing with my son and three guys. They were fishing. I wasn't. I walked away, and when I come around the corner and up the hill, there were these balls of fire, big ones, like in the daytime. It was just after 5 o'clock in January. It wasn't dark. They were big as a house, like 40, 50 feet around, glowing, flaming red, orange. And 4 hours later, I come walking back to the fire thinking 20 minutes had passed. And there had been a manhunt that had ensued, and with these three guys and my son, and now he's lost. And when I found him, he was in shock because these beings appeared to him and had him pinned down in the woods where he couldn't move, and they wasn't hurting him. It just scared him to ever live in death. But that's when it all happened in 2007. And it never quit happening, AJ. I came home. I told the world about it. And of course, I thought they would all want to know. I no longer had Crohn's disease. It was gone.
Well, we might, just to show you, that you had UFO sightings, and when they found you, remember they said that UFOs came back across the Cape Fear River, and they're saying that, and everybody goes strutting off. But how you got rid of the Crohn's disease is worthy of more story than that, and that's just amazing.
So that night, like John said, when I came back to the fire, there were three guys were standing there, and my son was missing. And I'm like, well, you won't believe what I just saw. And they're like, where have you been? We've been looking you all night. And I'm like, there's no way. I've just been gone 20 minutes. No, look at the time. And so I realized then Junior was missing. So they told me he'd been gone 2 hours. He'd looking for me. And when I found him, he was in shock. I got him back to the fire where they were standing, and then everything broke loose. Three big 40-foot glowing white balls of light came down out of the sky and landed about 75 yards away across the river. So pandemonium struck. We flew up out of there in my truck, leaving coolers and fishing poles. When we got back up to the top of the hill where I'd gone earlier, and ran into these orbs, they were still there. They wasn't gone. And so there went another 10 or 15 minutes of the worst moaning and crying and carrying on in my truck. The world's coming to an end. It was incredible what was going on. But what happened, I took these guys home. I won't shortcut this part. I took these guys home, and Chris Jr. and I, we had a fight. They had a fight on the way. Who was going to go home first? Actually, the one guy actually won out, and we had to go further away to drop him off first because they thought it'd be the last time they'd see their wives, children. And so Chris Jr. and I made it home about 11:30. And remember, I walked up the hill. It was 10 after 5. Now, by the time I get back and drop these guys off and get home, it's after 11:30 maybe. So it was an all-night thing. And Christopher was panicked, locking the house down, turning all the lights on, locking all the doors, turned the outside floodlights on. I'm in my study looking on the TV trying to find an invasion on the news. That's what I thought. And there was nothing. It was crickets. And Christopher come in there and, what, have you found anything, Dad? And I said, no. And about that time, my dad, I live out, at that time I was living beside my father out, kind of out in the rural area. It was the country years ago, farmland. And he had been there all his life. So I grew up, we were living next door. And he had hunting dogs. Still has a kennel there. My mom does, big kennels. He raised dogs all my life. Had 100 at the time sometimes. He saved, traded them and sold them and raised them for people, boarded them. And so the dogs went nuts. And I went outside against Christopher's wishes with him holding to my shirt to see what was going on with these dogs, because I thought they were somebody who was breaking into our shop. We had a workshop out there, a big garage with boats and hunting and fishing gear and equipment and tools. And it's near the dog kennel. So I thought somebody could see it and was breaking in. Long story short, we snuck out there, and that wasn't what it was. The dogs were looking the opposite direction, barking at something behind the kennel in the woods. And I had this outside dog, a 110-pound Chesapeake Bay retriever with me. And I sent her in the woods after what was in there to run them out. And I ran back around fast as I could, knowing the direction she was going to go. And because she left me going towards the north. And I ran towards due north, hard as I could, and turned and ran up against a tree. And Christopher had me by the shirt, and I pulled a loose from him and thought that he had just turned a loose and was coming on up behind me, but instead he ran toward the house. He didn't want no more of what was happening. He'd already had enough that night. And when I ran up to this big oak tree and stopped, the dog's coming to me. I just know if something's fixing to come out. I can hear the dog coming. And I turned around to look to see if Chris was coming up behind me, my son, Chris Jr. And when I did, he wasn't there, but there was this little creature. I'd say it was 3.5 feet tall, maybe 4. I don't even think it was 4 feet tall. It was glowing a soft white, like the moon color. It had deep red eyes about the size of 50-cent pieces or a little bigger, maybe an inch and a half around. And it had this, what looked like a triangle on its chest up under this glow. It was a dark triangle looking shape. And I just knew I was in trouble. I thought immediately, what went through my mind is I'm gone, or I'm dead. And I was in fright when I saw it. And I was against a tree, and this thing's 3-4 feet behind me. So I didn't want to turn around and look, I'm coming towards it. So I sucked myself against a tree not to get closer to it. And I turned real easy and dropped my arms. I said, I surrender. I mean you no harm. And this loud voice said, you don't understand. We're not here to hurt you. We're here to help you. And about that time, my dog is coming right on closer and closer, and she comes out of the forest when this entity just vanished right in front of me. And the funny thing is, the dog ran on out of hearing, and I just shook my head and thought, oh, my God. I don't need to tell Chris Jr. about this. He's already had enough excitement for the night. So I went back to the house, and it was the next morning when I got up that I had no more Crohn's disease. And that was the beginning of the whole thing. But what happened was it never quit coming. It was in my house the next day. It was in the forest. It was around me. These owls, which have become a major part of this experience. When the owls come, the orbs come. There were 3 owls living in the tree. I never heard an owl there. Now I got 3 hooting every night over my house. And orbs floating through the forest, and orbs inside the house. They would appear and flash, and then these shadow beings would walk down through the house. My wife was in tow behind them, following them through the house, seeing this stuff. And I got a call. I didn't report it for the first year because of the church community and my community, and my mom and dad and everybody and the whole brother I knew thought I was dealing with the devil himself. You're dealing with Satan. So they were telling me how I was endangering my children and bringing the devil into my house, and it had them terrified and scared, and it was just a big mess that went on there. And all the while I'm like, I was praying to God. I wasn't praying to the devil. I don't understand. And so that's how the name came about on that book, because it's been a whole lot more of a blessing to me than it's the people that's been hard to deal with, not the phenomena.
There's a program called Beyond Skinwalker Ranch that we did, and there's a segment on Chris. I'm in that segment. But I thought the most interesting piece of that was they brought in a helmet, an EEG helmet, electroencephalograph, and they split camera. The one screen is showing Chris pointing to the UFO. Another screen, well, there's orbs, actually, is what he's saying. Another screen shows the orbs he's pointing to. And the third screen is of the EEG that's taking place. And what you see is this tremendous shift. And it looks like this is a Zen meditator with 30 years experience on it. And Chris is not a Zen meditator, but you see commensurate with him saying it's here, saying a thing, and a huge brainwave shift at that point. The point is that people have reported interactions between humans and sentient non-humans throughout the entirety of human history and in all cultures. On that they fly in little tin cans is a fairly new wrinkle to it. And of course, you have the obvious problem, but you probably can go superluminal, but lots of things. How can you get from here to there? Given the time it takes, a number of late years to move something, and all of that, those kind of problems. Well, first of all, I come down against the ETH, or the extraterrestrial hypothesis. Not because the events don't happen, but because that answer is too simple. If you're talking about something that's co-located, ultra-dimensional, for instance, all of those problems, physics go away. And then you get back to what we were talking about earlier on after-death communication, and it looks like there are a lot of similarities there as well.
As far as the interdimensional beings thing, I agree with John, but I also have an idea that they may not be interdimensional. They may just be to where we can't see them, much like a dog or an animal can see you at night.
Well, that is exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
Interdimensional, it means that in physical reality, we don't see them, things that people and as we know, animals can see into the near IR and see things that are there. And so it's very close. We're just not having physical interaction with them until the time that it does become visible.
Now, this time of them coming visible is starting. It's on the baby steps, but it's happening, and everybody's seeing it, and I see it more and more, John, every night. Yeah. I'm getting this very close interaction of this fire that's appearing right. I had it just 2 nights ago appear 2 feet, 3 feet from my left arm, sitting in a chair, and I was like, whoa, when it appeared, and it shot right over the top of my head.
What's most important about this, in my view, is this continuing thing. This goes back, obviously, to the original event, but it now continues and is continuing to this very day.
Oh, there's something right on the water. Right on the water. Thank you. Thank you.
That's what we're looking for.
If you could flash for us and I'm getting it.
That's your orb there.
Right there. It's still in the camera. It's still in here.
That's what you're looking at. You see all these freaking places.
Thank you.
So,
Oh! Here, someone needs to look through this. It's very bright. Thank you. Oh, you see it? It's right there. You see it?
that is an orb.
That is definitely an orb. I'm tracking it here. Do you want to look?
Yeah, can you still see it?
Let me find it.
I lost it.
There's a beautiful orb right there tonight. That ain't even zoomed. It's in the cloud or going through the cloud. It's to the east of me. Man, is it bright. I gotta get my camera down. I had it at a weird angle. There's the power line. Top of the pond. There's the orb. Thank you for that. If I had my new camera, I could really have something beautiful here. Of course, I'm thrilled to get this. It's heading east. Maybe a tiny bit northeast. That pole there is almost there now. There's three of them. There's one further offshore. Look how rapid they've gotten. You see that?
That's crazy.
I'm telling you what it is. Now twice, three. See them three?
On the water.
Look how they're moving about now. You see that, Chester?
Yes, sir. I got it.
They're getting closer. They are.
Yeah, I see it.
Above us.
It's getting brighter.
Yep. Above the square.
And they're coming closer.
The ones on the water are coming closer. They'll come in and out. They'll spread apart. They'll line up.
Oh, look at that.
Look, wow, that was incredible what I'm seeing there. Man, one of them was bright white then.
This is a pretty big one. Right
Got
there.
one straight above us.
Yeah. I see it right there.
Yep.
Oh man, that thing
Wow.
was shot to the left a little.
Wow, that was a huge flash.
On the water?
Yeah, did you see it? Look how huge.
I'm watching the orbs.
Watch them, Chester.
Come on in the closer, guys.
Now they'll got the flash.
Every now and then it'll flash very bright.
Colonel John Alexander begins his book UFOs, Myths, Conspirations, and Realities, sustaining that UFOs are real, and ends it saying that whatever this is, it's more complex than we can possibly imagine.
What I would refer you to there is what you mentioned earlier before, the last paragraph of my UFO book. It is more complex than we can possibly imagine.
This has been the A.J. Parr Spiritual Journalist Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe.